Before we begin the session, I request Mr. Sudhanwa Kopardekar, Director MCCIA, to please share with us a few thoughts about MCCI IoT initiative.
Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us. We have purposefully crafted this session and the next one in tandem with each other. Those of you who know that MCCI has also launched an initiative called MCCI Sustainability Initiative in sync with the program that we run under the RAMP scheme. Those of you who were there in the inaugural would have known that we are one of the implementation agencies for raising and accelerating MSME performance in Maharashtra for MSSIDC. And we have specially curated a workshop on sustainability, digitization and scaling up. Sometimes there is a variant about clean energy, open access, sometimes there is marketing piece, sometimes scaling up, sometimes it's just these two elements, sustainability and digitization. So these we have presented even to the CDB top brass, to the Joint Secretary MSME, and there is a scheme in the making at the MSME ministry level. If you go on the icon, if you go on the portal of MSME ministry, there is an icon called MSME Digital. Currently it's empty, so we are trying to fill it with our model, so to say, of twinning digitization and sustainability by measuring the environmental impact assessment or the energy consumption, the resource consumption and so on and so forth. Also the human productivity in sync with the overall framework of sustainable development goals or the demands from the customers and so on and so forth. So we also have an assessment model which is completely self-funded, so to say, by the MSMEs, where we go on the shop floor of SMEs, interact with the entrepreneur, their teams, and do a walk-in energy audit, walk-in digitization assessment, and walk-in sustainability assessment. So we have some of the assessors who have been part of that panel, and we are also trying to be in touch with bigger groups like the Kirloskars and the Tatas and so on and so forth for enabling this mechanism of the workshops and the sustainability and digitization assessment for their tier 1, tier 2 and tier 3 companies. So hopefully some of those partnerships will emerge over time and we will benefit from those. So those of you who are from the manufacturing sector or from the technology sector, we'd like to stay connected with you even more intensely. So we have in this session, as we went along, we figured out that we need to give justice to both the elements, and therefore we kind of separated the two sub-panels, if I may put it, which is one is the IoT and which will be followed by AI. So we will have perspective from the technology players and the user group in both the sessions, and both the sessions will be steered by Mr. Dinanath Kholkar, who is chairman of our IT-ITS committee. So without any further delay, let me hand over to Mr. Kholkar. Thanks.
Thank you, Sudhanva, and good afternoon to all of you. So exactly a year back, or a little bit more than a year, we actually launched a very interesting initiative which we called as an IoT cluster, where we paired the technology providers with the manufacturing or the industry members of MCCI. And over the last year, we have been engaging these two participants in that cluster to ensure that we are able to make a match between the providers and the consumers. As part of that, we have also collaborated with academia, we have collaborated with technology societies and built up a momentum towards this. I have also visited a few of these implementation sites more to see what does it really take an MSME to go about deploying this type of solution, and it's been a very positive sign to see certain things. So that's as far as the activity at MCCI, and we'll hear from the panel as well. On the other side, I represent the Sensor Council of IEEE. I represent Computer Society on that Sensor Council, and very recently I was at Kobe in Japan, and there was a conference which was called Sensor 2024, And I was absolutely amazed at the level of advancements which are happening in sensing technology. And it was a very diverse set of sensors, some amazing innovations which are happening. And I'm sure, with the type of focus that's happening in India on the semiconductor industry as well as the electronics growth that we are seeing, there will be a lot more supply that is going to create, which will be made in India right from the chip and above, so that the overall cost dynamics of some of the technology would be very effective. So with that, I'll start off as, I won't spend time in introducing the panelists because Madhura already, or I forgot the name, we were already introduced. So let's start off with Sujata. I've known Sujata for a while. She was part of the cluster. So tell us a view, Sujata, more on how have you seen things change. So first, I'll ask each one of you, especially in the last year or so, have you seen things progress? Are there changes? Because earlier we used to all see a case that there was a lot of education which was being done, but not much of implementation. So just give a few opening comments on the implementation or adoption and the changes that you are seeing in the last year.
Thanks, Dina. And thanks to MCCIA for inviting me on this panel. So talking about IoT and evangelization, I have been evangelizing for last 10 years about industrial IoT and how it can benefit the industry. And slowly the industry is accepting it as a concept, right? Whether the industry has completely embraced it as a, something they must do. So we are still not at that stage, I think. It is still nice to have, it's good to have, but I must have it, that level has not yet reached. But those who have started the journey have, I would say realistically, they have a mixed baggage, right? And why that mixed baggage, maybe further up in the conversation, I will talk about that. But now things are slowly moving towards, yes, even the smaller industries are talking about it. No more evangelization is required. Everybody is aware of what it is. But having said that, identifying the right use case and implementing it and how to go about it, that still needs a lot of consulting, a lot of evangelization. So yes, things are progressing, but not as quickly as we would like.
So I'll ask Nitin, you represent a much larger group. Tell us about the penetration which has happened within your group and especially the plants that you have been very closely involved.
Good afternoon. So though we are a large group, but the journey has been fairly similar to any, say, a medium or a MSME organization. So we have been at it for around 7 to 8 years now. And but I must say that in the last couple of years, it has really picked up pace, at KOEL at least. And in terms of the manufacturing lines, implementation of IoT, as well as implementing IoT on our products. On both the sides, I personally see a significant change. And a lot of credit for that goes to the network availability, especially the internet availability and penetration that has happened. So for us, for example, we have close to 80,000 of our products having IoT devices on them, giving out data every 30 seconds, and we collect that, analyze that. So computationally, the resources are much, I would say, better available now, and the network penetration is there. So on the product side, the progress is good. On the manufacturing side, though it was a struggle initially, but what we decided to do is we tried to go in a small piece-by-piece basis. So that has helped us. Otherwise, the cost in these kind of things is fairly exponential. So if, I personally feel doing large number of small IoT initiatives gives you a lot more benefit compared to a big bang initiative from the beginning. So that will be my view.
So Shirish and I have been interacting for the last couple of years, and primarily he does a lot of consulting to many of the companies, and we have actually visited some of the companies together, Shirish. And one of the areas which we looked at as a specific industry, we looked at chemical industry, for example. And I'm on a board of a company, and one of the things which came across was that as a larger community of the chemical industry, they were very low on. Any views from your side as regards how do you actually pick up a particular area and then penetrate that? And given that the specific reason I'm asking is MCCI operates with committees which are very industry focused, like you have food processing industry, you have defense, electronics and other things. So give your views around that and how you have been able to drive that.
So thanks, Dina. Firstly, let me give a perspective about end users, the industry which are trying to adopt this, something called as Industry 4.0, you call it IIoT. You have various sensors. Some are actually from the legacy systems. You are trying to connect everything and trying to make a meaning out of something that will benefit your business, right? In the form of quality, throughput, anything that you want to basically either increase the efficiency or effectiveness, right? Now, this simplistic definition of Industry 4.0 or IIoT has been floating around for last more than 10 years. But if you see this MSME, and I'll answer the chemical industry related question also, has been a gap between the way that the promise was made during any implementation of a project gets sized, the business case gets created, and whatever gets committed without much of knowledge of what it is in the form of outcome, it does not get respected. So cost has actually been incurred, and then after 1 year or 2 years, the management comes back and asks, what has happened? So now we are in a process to educate everybody that, okay, let's go in step, and I think Nitin highlighted that, go in smaller steps, commit only the things that you can do, take the cost down to the level where you can actually get it implemented in the incremental and minimalistic way. That's the word that we are trying to coin. I think Sudhanava and myself, we were together, and we have this. This is the approach that we are taking for MSME specifically. Now, coming back to chemical industry, if you look at chemical industry, years together, chemical industry runs with the process controls and data. So data-wise, it is extremely matured, right? You have data. Now, it is a matter of, now Industry 4.0 has a tenet called as big data, right? And how many of you know about definition of big data? Big data is the data. If you look back, many of our manufacturing units already have data, which was big already, but now it has been called as big data in the form of the size of the data, variability of the data, frequency at which the data is accumulated. Chemical industry already has it. Chemical industry runs with that feedback control loop where that level of maturity is already there, right? Industry 4.0 or these initiatives can get you two types of benefits for an industry. One is making your product more efficient or intelligent, or the second part is making your manufacturing or the whole end-to-end process more matured. Now, in chemical industry, process side is already taken care. Now, the product that chemical industry makes is in the form of any liquid that you have, right, or any solid that you have, which has got a very different composition. So now work is going on for actually focusing on how to create that DNA of product that you want to make, eventually resulting into what customer wants. So that's the focus.
So my question was specifically on, would it make sense for industry vertical-wise approach within the members of MCCIA? So we created an IoT cluster which had members who are in manufacturing, and we had providers which were technology. But I think given our experiences, it definitely makes sense to verticalize it. And let's say, for example, Anand Chordia runs food processing committee. So food processing committee related implementations could definitely make
I think answer is definitely yes. Yeah. And because every industry has got its nuance and specific thing that they want to take out and already have the maturity of data already in being present. So I think answer is yes, that way.
This particular aspect, right? So I firmly believe that especially for MSMEs, to keep the costs in check or to keep the costs reasonable, it will be helpful if we create like a package solutions for a particular industry. So if you are an automotive industry, this is the package solution for you. So no customizations, not much configuration. So just go there and very quickly within a 2-3 weeks time deploy it. So industry by industry, if we create such packaged IoT solutions, then that will be definitely helpful to keep the cost down, to keep the implementations in reasonable time. Because today, in addition to cost, it is also the implementation cycle that takes a toll, because the industry also has to invest in terms of manpower, in terms of their bandwidth for management, etc. So these both aspects will get optimized if we have package solutions for specific industry.
Abhijit, I'll come to you next. You know, you have been at the implementation sites, various locations. So tell us the year gone by. You know, give us a view of, from a provider point of view, how have you seen change? What are the type of transitions which you have seen different organizations? Give us that view.
So I would actually like to take one more step back and start about 2.5 years back before I come to the 1 year back point of ramp. So 2.5 years ago, even having a conversation about Industry 4 IoT was a bit of a challenging because as a provider, we used to remain in a technology space and consumers wouldn't even know the terms we are using, which is not their fault, right? So there has been a bit of an education on both sides. Providers have started getting more and more familiar and conversant in the language of the shop floor. So when we use the names of the challenges, the processes, the tools that the shop floor uses, the connection is much better with the people who are the beneficiaries of this technology. On the consumer's end, there's been a lot. I don't know how it all happened, but within the 3-year span, there's a sea change in the level of awareness that we see on the consumer's part also, right? Nowadays, when we go, consumer entities, at least the leadership team, has already a fair bit of crystallization in their mind that these are the 3 top challenges, and I want to talk to somebody who can build IoT or who can build AI or who can build something else. So that mapping in the minds of customers is fairly reliable. So that helps to get the conversation rolling much faster. So initially, 2-3 years ago, we used to have a 2-hour conversation just to get to the use cases. Now, before on the phone we talk about use cases, when we go, we talk about demonstrating capabilities. That is one sea change that has happened. Another major change we have seen is, and this is a commendation, my congratulations to the consumer community, that we don't talk to just the decision makers. The decision maker will bring one person from quality, one person from stores, one person from the supervisor, one operator, and the decision maker takes a step back and lets us discuss with the shop floor staff. And they step in where required. So it's a learning for us, but we have to field questions from the people who are going to push the buttons, not people who are going to pay the money, right? So that is another sea change over the last 1 year. Coming to ramp, we definitely see engagement. Now, for a moment, if you set aside the fact that kitne workshops kiye, kitne assessments kiye, kitne engagements kiye, I think we should keep a slightly long horizon on that. These things do take time. But I'll give you just a very narrow sample, right? So we have conducted about 15 to 16 ramp workshops along with sustainability and all. Out of those 16, we have conducted 12 assessments, right, from each of those workshops. Out of those 12, we have had 7 engagements. Let's talk about next steps. And out of those 7 engagements, 3 implementations have resulted, which I would say is a good trend. Now, of course, for now, we think that, वो number दिखना चाहिए, but it does take time. The direction is right. And I think 1 year ago, we used our conversation about the models was very messy. Talk about pricing model, talk about product or service, talk about OPEX or CAPEX. I think that is also crystallizing better. See, conversation and the terminology views has a big impact to, materializing good stuff. As long as both sides are educated and talk each other's language, it is much easier to get to the implementation stage. So that has been my learning, sir.
So just to conclude, and probably I'll give a view around where all I have seen successful implementations. There were 3 very interesting patterns that I noticed. One was there was a sponsor who was very well educated and passionate about driving digital implementation. The other was they had hired consciously a person who has done an implementation in some large organization and things like that. So they had actually a movement which was involved. And the third one, I saw that there were the second generation in that MSME, which were very tech savvy. So that was a very interesting pattern. And within MCCIA, we run a cohort which is very specifically on some of these second generation entrepreneurs. And I interact with many of them. And they're very tech savvy. They are very much aware of it. And for them, it's technology first approach. So I think overall it does make sense to look at these, especially those who are looking for implementation or looking for opportunities to take your solutions to these customers. So let me look at the other dimension, which was around sustainability, and we did mention that one of the aspects of this is to look at these implementations to enable the overall sustainability of the business and the overall sustainability development goals. So maybe I'll start off with Nitin, because I know that Kirloskars have had a very clear agenda about what are the things that they are going to focus on. And specifically, if you are able to call out the outcomes that we have been able to deliver, so that the people are able to appreciate what are the type of impact it has made.
So in terms of sustainability, I think one of the key areas where IoT has definitely helped us as Kirloskar Group is on the energy side, especially the energy consumption side, or in general resource consumption side. In terms of our manufacturing facility at Kagal, so we have a lot of energy sources. So if you go to Kagal, you will have a solar as one of the energy sources. We have a huge solar park there. We have wind as one of the energy source. We have a battery pack as an energy source. We have our own gensets as an energy source, and we also have grid supply, of course. What we have done there is that with the implementation of IoT and building our own algorithms on top of that, we are able to create a system which distributes the energy or make sure that the right choice is made for the energy source in such a way that we achieve our ESG targets. Say, for example, if we want to have, say, more green energy, then we will say give more priority to solar. In case we want more availability, then we are focusing on, say, a diesel genset or a battery pack. So that kind of combination and selection of the right resources is possible because all these energy sources are actually connected through a IoT or monitoring devices. There is an observability element to it, and then there is somebody who can take smart decisions based on all that data. With that, I think we have been able to really bring down our energy consumption, and we have been, especially the Kagal plant, which is one of the state-of-the-art manufacturing facilities. So they have been able to win a lot of, say, awards. That is one part, but at the core, we have been able to do a more green production. So that's the mantra for KOEL, and we have been able to demonstrate that physically at our manufacturing plant.
Thanks, Nitin. I think it makes a lot more encouraging to see the type of outcomes that are being delivered. Sujata, over to you. I was at your stall and you showed me one of your solutions, which is predominantly focused on the environment or the impact of waste which goes back into the environment. So, and specifically my interest is on water. So if you can give a little bit more color on that solution, because I'm sure there are many of the industries which are heavily dependent on water, and they also pollute water and they have treatment to the water. So you may just want to give that and obviously extend it further to the other emissions as well.
Sure. So the product he mentioned, it's called Enviro Connect, and it is an industrial emission monitoring product. So what we do is we connect to the analyzers, ETP, STP output, and we continuously monitor the quality of the effluent that is being left in the environment, as well as the flow, so both the quality and quantity. This is a government sponsored, so Central Pollution Control Board has guidelines, and nowadays we are seeing it is a very encouraging sign that some industries it's mandatory for them to monitor this. But some industries are doing it on their own accord. You know, they want to be environmentally conscious and they want to be doing their bit in environmental part, and hence they are doing it on their own. So we are continuously monitoring the output quality and quantity of the ETP and STP output and providing alerts to the industry. We also are backward integrating it with the process and giving them some insights as to what changes in the process leads to more pollution, you know, because ultimately the process improvements will lead to the reduction in the pollution, and this applies to both water and air. So same thing in air. So in air quality also, the emissions of SOx, NOx and CO and all of those polluting gases. So there also backward integration into process, and giving them insights as to what is causing more pollution and what can be done to reduce. So those kind of things, and they are possible in the technologies that we are providing. And in addition to that, if you talk of manufacturing, not the pollution part of it, water, air, IoT helps you to produce more with less, right? So resource utilization is improved, wastage is reduced. So any wastage you are reducing on the shop floor is helpful to the environment, right? So IoT and sustainability go hand in hand, or IoT is a big enabler for all kinds of sustainability.
Maybe Abhijit, I will, so you mentioned about the implementation. So any specific examples that you would like to share where you have seen significant amount of focus or drive coming in from a sustainability point of view in your implementations?
Sure. In fact, it's a very relevant question because when we did our first ramp assessment, right, we did not really include sustainability because it was part of another team. But Kopardekar sir suggested that we should have an element of sustainability in the IoT report also, which we added there, right? Now, very surprising for us, the very first two engagements we had, their very first requirement was to monitor hour by hour kilowatt hour units, which was a surprise to us because our anticipation was people would be more interested in production numbers. But the first two contacts we had was, pehle humko ye pain solve karna hai, right? So there is a lot of consciousness, and there is this one part of sustainability. There are of course others. There is water. There is even manpower tracking. There is utilization tracking. A lot of things go into sustainability. But once we started having these conversations in the context of ramp, we found that sustainability was coming up as number one or number two requirement from potential consumers. Most of that crystallized into energy and water, right? In fact, a number of things, because some people have LT as well as HT divisions into their plants, correct? And it's very hard for them to do hour by hour thing. And end of day, somebody can always write with a pen on paper that aaj ka itna utilization hai. Then somebody says itna zyada kyun hai? I don't think we're using that much power. So in all these places, one value that IoT has added is hour by hour, we have had to validate that yes, this much power is actually being consumed in your shop. Because the meter doesn't tell you hour by hour. And then you start, oh, it's a true picture then. What can I do to address this picture? And then they go out and find consultants that, okay, do a full audit of my plant. So I think what we say, no, plan, do, check, act. Whether you choose Six Sigma, Lean, whatever, your decision making starts with collection of data, right? And the data tells you how big the problem is. And I think the first interaction IoT has is, it gives you the data that you were not privy to before that point. And if the data is right, the decisions are going to be better decisions. So that has been my experience.
Yeah, no, absolutely wonderful to hear that. And I think it has been a very interesting step that Sudhanava took to integrate the sustainability into it, because then you could clearly link one more purpose, not just on efficiencies and things like that. So Shirish, continuing on that point, and I know you have been consulting to various companies on, especially on elimination of waste, and coming up with their overall digital strategy around it. So tell us about the entire journey, about what does it, who do you convince, how do you actually make a business case for them to actually adopt it and things like that. So entire digitization strategy itself.
Right. Basically let me be very honest, the whole purpose of digital strategy or digital transformation, typically we do not use this lingo with the SMEs. This is a kind of language that we use for larger type of organizations or corporates. But for building a kind of a roadmap or small kind of a plan where you move from a state to another state, firstly you have to actually measure where you are right now. So that assessment, if we are doing right now, we are actually measuring all the digital presence that you have and what is the kind of outcome you are generating right now. So we generate as is. It is called as is state. And based on what that organization tries to do, they want to basically increase their production by 2 times, 4 times, or basically go across geographies. What is the purpose that they have? Translate that into something which is going to be supported by the digital tools that you have. Now, once you know that is called as a to-be state, right? The current process gets completely documented of what digital tool is giving what kind of outcome. And Abhijit outlined that, all these tenets of data actually reveals where gaps are. The second point is about the gaps that you identify to be going from as is to the future state for 3 years or to 5 years, right? Larger that we create this roadmap, it becomes a little bit threatening. So we bring it down to not only 6 months, but build as 30, 60, 90 days plan. Okay? So basically start with something that you can deliver in 1 month, 2 months, or 3 months. Actually get handshake with the owner of the organization that, okay, this is something which is absolutely delivered. Talking about the waste, conventionally, if you know about the waste in lean, any of the waste that is getting identified by IoT is actually going to generate direct benefit in your profitability. Whatever is getting wasted, if you are able to save that cost, that directly goes in your profit. So first 30, 60, 90 days, we aim to get profitability going up. We don't aim anything else because money in the pocket of the owner means a lot. So I think in nutshell, that's exactly what we do. We don't draw a huge amount of 3 to 5 years plan, but focus on every 3 months that we are delivering the value from whatever smaller tools. And you don't really require to have a large corporate. And we actually get afraid, right? Some 50 lakh rupees quote comes and then, we say that, okay, only larger organizations can do it. We should be able to do it in, a couple of lakhs of rupees and show that output. And if we see that kind of money coming back in 3 months, 6 months, that confidence gets built. And that is the key to success.
No, very important aspect that you have to show those type of outcomes. So one very interesting use case, one of our members had taken me to one of their sites and they were doing automation on parking lots, saving of energy in parking lots. And one of the key reasons why they were implementing it at that site was because one of the persons had already done a similar implementation at Mahratta city, and so he was trying to replicate that. So that was one of the. But I was quite amazed at the amount of saving. They were able to get almost 80% saving on the energy which was being used in parking lots, just by using IoT-based solutions. And it's quite amazing. So, in fact, I spoke to Satish Magar, who you probably know has been the architect of Mahratta city. And he said, look, all other things which were there were already we were tracking it, but people were not looking at lighting as an area. And he decided to do that at Mahratta. They replicated that at Amanora. And the site that I had seen was at the Barclays GCC. And it's quite amazing. So there are many such examples that we have seen, across industry, across different sectors that are people are able to find those use cases. But there are still issues about scaling up. Okay, so I'll probably look at both Sujata, you and Nitin. You have seen large scale. You have implemented at multiple locations. We'll talk about the scale dimension with you primarily. How do you see things scale up? Because Nitin, you mentioned about small projects and things like that. But as soon as you start seeing benefits, I'm sure the management is after you to saying, "Abhi 3 kiya hai, abhi 30 karo implementation." So give that perspective about how organizations are scaling up. And Sujata, you have multiple implementations, and what do you see the future to be?
I think Abhijit mentioned it briefly about the data being available and decisions getting made based on that. So I always feel that we are really comfortable making decisions based on our gut feel, more often than not, correct? And what IoT does actually is that it makes you take decisions based on data, correct? That's a major shift in the mindset that actually the shop floor or the users, they need to, first of all, have. And we have seen that though initially there was a lot of hesitation and there will be arguments on data, eventually if the person knows that it is going to help him or her in his productivity, then automatically it catches up. And in terms of scalability, what we have seen is that, say for example, we have 10-15 different product assembly lines. We will do the implementation on one line, we will perfect it there, and then we will do a horizontal deployment on the other lines. Rather than doing, say, all 15 lines a small deployment, we will go on one line, we will perfect it, and then we will put it other. So that's how we have been able to scale our implementations at our manufacturing lines. And in terms of scalability, I think there is one more aspect that we need to consider is the aspiration part. Finally, the company owner or the person who is running the company, the aspiration has to come before ROI when it comes to IoT. If you always think about ROI, most probably you will miss out on all the benefits. So somebody must be there who thinks a little ahead of time, invests a bit of money, sees the benefit, and then the ball starts rolling. So I think that has to be the approach.
So I'm going to give a little divergent view than what you just said. Scaling is of two types, right? Vertical scaling and horizontal scaling. So vertical scaling is you do a deployment with some functionality and then you add more and more functionality on that same line or on that same set of assets, right? So one big aspect in terms of the cost of IoT implementation is the infrastructure cost, right? The cost required for networking, your Wi-Fi, your LAN and cloud and all of that. Now that infrastructure cost is fairly same, whether you deploy functionality 1 to 3 or you deploy functionality 1 to 10, right? So vertical scaling is much more cost effective because your infrastructure is already there. So if you have set up some infrastructure, then you need to start thinking what more can I extract using the same infrastructure. And that type of scaling is always cost effective because you are only incrementally adding some cost, maybe for some license or some additional hardware, but your base is already ready. So we always tell the industries that you start thinking from this angle because a lot of companies do start with the productivity or OEE, right? And then they stop there. They don't look at other aspects which could be maintenance, which could be quality. You have a system, you can deploy maintenance system, you can deploy vision systems using same infrastructure. So this is one aspect which we try to convince the customers. Horizontal scaling. Now you said we take one assembly line, make it perfect, right? There is nothing perfect. So if you strive for 100% perfection, you will never reach there. So you have to take a decision as to what is good enough. Am I getting the returns that I am expecting, right? And once you start getting those returns, then you start thinking about the horizontal scaling. For horizontal scaling, what you need is an internal champions. Those who will vouch that what has happened is giving me results. And for that, you need another tracking, which is the tracking of ROI, right? And for tracking ROI, your initial implementation has to be of certain optimal size. If you start pilot on just 2 machines, you may not be able to show ROI on that because those 2 machines are not really mattering much in your overall scheme of things. So the selection of your first implementation has to be such that you are able to show ROI. Because if you show ROI, then only the management is going to invest in horizontal scaling. So these are some of the things which are to be considered when you want to look at scaling of them.
Abhijit, I'll come to you next. You were discussing about regulations, export to EU, and all of these things which are driving a lot of these implementations. And give us a view around that and how you see that pretty much a must-do type of thing. So when we started the discussion, it was still felt that it is good to have or it is something which somebody's aspiration is driving it. But what if you can't do business because you're not compliant towards using certain things, either on demonstrating sustainability or demonstrating the type of qualities that you require and things like that? So.
Thanks for the question, sir. I've been wanting to talk about this. So the way we look at things, right, over the last 6 years that we've been implementing, we have seen 3 different kinds of drivers why a consumer would agree to adopt the latest set of technologies. The simplest is an internal driver where the leadership team, right, because they have burned their fingers, because they are not getting the kind of data or analysis they want, because they know there's a problem but they can't put a finger on it. They want to measure the problem. That's internal driver. Another major internal driver is, I think sir touched upon it, is the next generation taking over. And they since their childhood, they have been on social media and everything is the click of a button. So at somewhere they see a gap that why can't I do the same thing in my industrial implementation. Those are internal drivers. More interesting is internal drivers are great because if internal driving is happening, then you don't need external drivers. In many cases, external drivers, like Kholkar sir mentioned, right? The largest external driver I have seen so far is many of our even micro and small manufacturers are now seeking and even getting offshore customers, right? So we are competing in EU, we are competing in Australia, we are certainly competing in Brazil and other emerging markets, right? And people who are like a couple of oceans away, they want to know that everything is going fine with their job orders. And the one way to do it is they call my customers and say, "Kaisa chal raha hai? You know, when will I get it?" And we tell them something we ourselves don't know. Second thing is they say, "Boss, give me a dashboard." So somebody in EU, in France, in Frankfurt, tells my customer who's making wire harnesses for, Volkswagen, that show me the status of my 10,000 orders in real time. And when that happens, automatically the market is biased towards manufacturers who have a technology adoption trend, right? Because they are going to get preferential treatment from their offshore customers. And we need to taste that thing once. If I'm a reluctant, consumer and I'm being forced by a customer to adopt technology, I have to do it once. And just because you start seeing it's a snowball effect, and then I drive myself. So the biggest external driver is my offshore customers are saying, this is what I want. If you have this technology, if you can show me a remote dashboard, then I'm more inclined to give you my business. And the third, again, a very major driver is regulatory driver. And one thing comes to mind is we want ISO certifications, we want IATF certifications. Having IATF is pretty big deal for automotive and aeronautics manufacturers. Now I've gone through all the 34, 35 pages of the IATF specification. Not once you'll see the name data science or IoT or AI or anything. But almost every third or fourth page, there is a reference, data should come from sensors on the machine, data should be accessible over cloud so that I can audit it remotely, there should be analytics generated in real time. So without using the word IoT or Industry 4 or AI, there's an explicit recommendation that if you want to get ITF certified, these things should be adopted, right? And compared to the benefits we get by getting certified, the cost and the time of implementation kind of suddenly seems much more feasible. So that is my take. I do want to go back and touch upon one aspect that both Sujata ma'am and Nitin sir took over. So we spoke about ROI, and this is something we have struggled with a lot because continuous improvement initiatives, it's very hard to articulate an ROI, correct? Now if I was a consultant, I would probably find a way to tell you that itna gram ROI milega, right? Kind of thing. But in fact, it's very hard because the improvements are happening not just because of one implementation, correct? I discussed this thing with somebody who is a serial entrepreneur who's on his third major startup, sold first two startups to MNCs. He gave me a very good perspective. Then I start sharing it with my customers. Look at ROIs as a part of your KPIs. Now, I cannot give you a number on ROI, but you have a KPI to increase your operational efficiency. You have a KPI to increase productivity. You have a KPI to decrease your power footprint, right? So even if you can't have a dollar figure as an ROI, you can directly draw a line between AI or Industry 4 or IoT adoption to multiple KPIs that you have. And I think that was a big enlightening moment, aha moment for me, that somebody might be looking at ROI, but you can answer that and satisfy the question, linking that to KPIs. I thought we have a lot of discussion of ROI, so I'll bring this perspective as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Abhijit. It is definitely important for the industry to be aware of the regulations and what it really requires to compete in the market. Shirish, I'll probably give you the last word on this topic, but I will take you up on your Industry 5.0. I know you have been talking about Industry 5.0. You've done sessions at MCCIA. While I know that adoption of Industry 4.0 is itself at a nascent stage, just give a flavor of what is coming up.
Yeah, actually opening your mouth for 5.0, people say 4.0 ही नहीं हुआ तो क्या 5.0 बात कर रहे हैं. 5.0 has been there on the horizon for the last 5 years. EU has already adopted it 3 years back. There has been policies completely rolled out by the government, and it is been aligned to. Now, why do we require 5.0? Let's go back and firstly accept that, okay, 4.0 is maybe having maturity of 2.2 on the scale of 5 for small and medium businesses, maybe corporate it will be 4.2. So kind of matured, going there, showing some metrics, outcomes that we are expecting. For larger corporates where funding is still going to come in incremental way, the way that COEL is doing. 5.0 comes now. When we move on to 4.0 and excessive use of 4.0, we talk about throughput, right? We actually look at running the factories forever, 365 days, 24 hours. And there is a concept of dark factory which is coming and on the horizon where some of the factories are absolutely running without any manual interventions. Now, as you have seen the whole process of industrialization, is it a threat that we are generating for human and capital and the kind of effort that and are we threatening the manpower element in the industry? So 5.0 actually gets that maturity where the control thresholds, the kind of way that we want to bring back the intelligence to take from where you are in 4.0, that level of maturity and benefits to the next level by bringing in manpower in the intelligent way. So 5.0 has one first pillar, which is manpower, getting the manpower back wherever it is required, intelligently to control the systems that you have put in place in 4.0. So it basically builds on to 4.0, already getting benefits. Second tenet is sustainability, and we have spoken about considerably about the sustainability part. ESG as an element has been there, but sustainability has not been kind of landing well in the form of metrics that we need to have to control them. Now let's not get into the debate where our government or in India or abroad, carbon footprint is getting measured and penalized for, which will drive the sustainability part or ESG part to be more and more aggressively followed to make the whole process of manufacturing more green. So this is second part where we bring in sustainability as an element. Third part is the agility of your organization. Now, we had a pandemic 4 years back. We did not know how to react to it. Right? Remote working was one of the ways that we can do. Actually, out of all the business processes, we identified the processes which still could be run with the customers, not going to the workplace, but still continuing the industry without any intervention. That kind of agility, we need to actually forecast. Now, all of our organizations in IT sector might have something called as business continuity or fallback arrangements, and we do plan in pockets. But 5.0 will make you govern as agility part at the governance level. So these are the three tenets that are on the horizon. We have been educating larger organizations first. 5.0 eventually will land. My viewpoint is that, it is coming. It is going to come and actually be with us. It's always good to be aware of what we are not adopting than saying no to it. That's what I would say.
Given that we have such a large European presence in the Pune region and many of our members are actually suppliers or partners to these companies, I think it's very important that they are aware of what is the evolution this journey will take. So I think we probably don't have time for question answers, but what I would do is, we thought this will be just a trailer. These folks are all here. You can definitely interact with them. So again, thank you Abhijit, thank you Shirish, thank you Sujata and Nitin for this session. Please give a round of applause.
Thank you so much. It was really some insightful discussions here. I request Mr. Dinanath Kholkar to please felicitate our panelists. Mr. Abhijit Devgirikar of Copper Cloud Technologies. Mr. Shirish Kulkarni of Stota Consultech. Ms. Sujata Tira of Ascent Intellimation. and Mr. Nitin Gokhale of Kirloskar Group. I request the panelists and the moderator for a group picture, please.